Burma has been under control by military regime more than 50 years ago, and how does it affect to Burma's society in your opinion?
Well, of course, the Burmese people are not used to making their own decisions. If you live under a dictatorship for a long time, people, because they're not used to making their own decisions, they lose confidence in themselves, and they forget that they are the ones who are really essential to this country. Without the people, there can be no country. And so we are trying to help people to regain this confidence and to understand that they are the ones who should be deciding what the destiny of this country should be. So dictatorships really kill confidence in people.
And it's effective in new generation.
I think the new generation is much improved. It's because of the improvement in communications. The new generation knows what's going on in the rest of the world because of the IT revolution, and this cannot be reversed. And then they know what life is like in other countries, and when they're able to communicate with each other and learn from each other about what is going on, then I think this gives them a greater confidence in themselves. It makes them think. It makes them understand that they also have their own power.
Now, political problems in Burma affect to the Thai people, like to the Thai. Many people migrate to Thailand, and we have a lot of refugees in Thailand. Do you think this is the internal affair inside Burma that Thailand should not?
Well, surely Thailand doesn't think it's an internal affair, because after all, our refugees are living in Thailand and our migrant workers are in Thailand. And it's not easy, I know, for Thailand to cope with this problem of refugees. And migrant workers also, they have their problems. It's a problem for both countries, because our refugees are not having a very easy time, and nor are our migrant workers. And at the same time, Thai society also has a price to pay for the influx of refugees and migrant workers. So surely it's something that we should sort out together, because it affects both our countries. So how can you say it's a purely internal matter?
But I heard the neighboring country and the ASEAN always say that political inside Burma is internal affair.
Well, this is part of the policy of ASEAN, and perhaps they should change with time. And if we recognize that the lines of communication and the contacts between our respective countries are stronger than they were, then they should start reviewing what they see as internal affairs and what they see as affairs affecting the whole region.
If you meet Secretary of ASEAN, what do you want to say to him?
Well, I first want to know what he has to say to us. People always ask me this: if you meet so-and-so, what do you want to say to him or say to her? And I'm always a little surprised, because when you meet somebody, it's a two-way business. It's not just a question of what I want to say, it's also a question of what he or she has to say. And I would like to think of it as an exchange of views, rather than one person saying what he or she wants to say to the other one. I think that it is important that the regional countries engage with us as well as with the government, and that we learn to know more about the real problems of this country, and not just the ones that are officially recognized. I don't think that the withdrawal of sanctions is going to change the economy in Burma. The IMF and other organizations have said very clearly that it is because of the macroeconomic policies pursued by the government that the economy is in trouble. And they even said in the report that the sanctions have had very little effect on the economic situation.
So how international community can support democracy in Burma?
At the moment, what I'm asking for the international community to do is to insist that the political process in Burma should be all-inclusive. I think I mentioned this earlier. If the elections are of any credibility whatsoever, the political process must be inclusive. It must include the NLD, must include other political forces, particularly ethnic nationality groups, and all political prisoners should be released to take part in the political process.
Do you heard about the mega project from Thailand investing in Burma right now, like the wind dam and the water project? Do you think it's a good chance for Thailand to invest in Burma now?
I would like investments to be responsible, But this should be on both sides. People always say, is it right for Thailand to invest? Is it right for China to invest? I think the most important thing is for the government of Burma to protect its own people and its own natural resources, to ensure that the investments are to the benefit of our country and that there is accountability throughout the process. I think that we have to look to our own responsibilities first before we point our finger at others.
Anything for the local people?
There are many varying opinions about that. There are many who say that there is no benefit for the local people, that the environment will be ruined and that their lives in the long run will be more difficult. There are, of course, who are in favor of the investment, who claim that the development will work for the greater good of the local people. So it's a two-way argument, and I have not had the opportunity to really study the situation on the ground.
You have been fighting for democracy for many years, and do you think you want to take away some time?
No, we are all of us. I'm not the only one who's been fighting for democracy for 20 years, and there are people in the 80s who are not tired. So why should I be tired?
You still look young, so you can have a lot of energy to work.
Well, all of us have a lot of energy because we have the unity to keep us going.
Being Aung San Suu Kyi in the past 20 years, what is your gain and what is your loss?
I've never thought of it in terms of gain or loss. I've always thought of myself as doing something I chose to do, and sometimes we are more successful in our endeavor, sometimes we're not as successful as we might like, but I do not think of it as a personal gain or personal loss.
Now you are icon of democracy in Burma. Do you have pressure on this? When people say you are icon of democracy?
Well, I found the word icon very embarrassing, and somehow I'd like to think that I'm not an icon, I'm a worker. I would prefer it if people would refer to me as somebody who's working for democracy. An icon of democracy, it sounds as though I'm not doing anything at all, just sitting there being an icon. I'm not sure I quite like that.
The next question is about the future. When you look at the situation on Burma right now, and what you will see Burma in next 10 years?
I hope better and freer and more secure and more vigorous. That's what I'd like to see. Now, whether it will be exactly like that, I cannot tell, but that's what we're trying to achieve. We want to see progress. We want to see greater our people with greater confidence and greater opportunity.
What is the thing that made you feel discouraged, and how you deal with it?
Well, actually, I don't think I'm particularly courageous. People talk about my courage and so on, but for me, it's just that I take every day as it comes and I do the best that I can, and I try to make sure that whatever I do is in keeping with what my conscience says I should do.
What is your happiness in this town?
In this town? My happiness? Well, I'm happy when I speak to my son. I have good friends and good colleagues. There are many reasons for happiness if you know how to look at those reasons. But if you just want to look at the bad side of the situation, you can do that too. But I think all of us have learned to be very practical and to understand that you can't just have the good and the bad, they come together. And you have to learn to not just to live with both of them, but to make use of both of them. If you have bad experiences, you use them to make you better, to make you stronger. If you had good experiences, then you learn to be grateful and you learn to enjoy life as it comes.
The next question is, I asked for the women around the world. I think many women curious to know why you still look young. What is your secret of your healthy?
Well, I lead a disciplined life and I meditate. I think a disciplined life is very, very important. As I said earlier, I think that a lot of the food that I like is not really healthy, and I eat the food that I think is good for my health rather than the food that I like. I think I'm inclined to like junk food, I hardly ever eat it. In fact, I don't eat it.
So who prepared for the food for you when you were housework?
I prepared some of it myself and some of it my companions prepared. But it's very, very simple. It's very easy to prepare my food. In fact, I think my companions got very, very bored with what they had to prepare for me. The same thing every day was vegetables, steamed vegetables. And they couldn't eat like that. They had more adventurous things.
The last question I have to ask that what do you want to say with Thai people?
Well, what I want to say is that we're neighbors, and we want to be good neighbors, and I would like us to be good friends as well, and that we would like to go forward in the world together, hand in hand, as friends, as people who understand each other. And at this moment, of course, as I said earlier, many of our people are in Thailand as refugees and as migrant workers. But we would like to see a day when we too can contribute towards the betterment of the region, not just depend on other countries to help us in our difficulties.